On April 2nd, 2026, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu landed in Jos. He had come to console families who had just buried 28 people killed in a Palm Sunday attack on their community in Plateau State. But he never left the airport. He told the grieving families he had only 10 minutes to spend with them. Then he made a promise.
I promise you, this experience will not repeat itself.
In the days that followed, dozens more Nigerians were killed. So today we are asking the question Nigerians have been asking for almost 3 years. When this president promised that security would be his administration's top priority, what exactly did that promise mean? And can the Nigerian state still protect its own people? Let's start with what actually happened in just the last 2 weeks. On Palm Sunday, March 29th, gunmen attacked Angwan Rukuba, a community in the northern part of Plateau State. According to Channels TV, at least 28 people were killed and 22 injured. It was around 7:30 p.m. Many victims had just returned from church services. 4 days later, on April 2nd, President Tinubu flew to Jos for a condolence visit. The presidential aircraft touched down at 4:45 p.m. He met the families at the airport and gave them his word. This experience will not repeat itself. But by the next day, another attack had struck a community in southern Plateau, killing several more residents. Over the Easter weekend, Sahara reporters documented at least 34 worshippers and residents killed in coordinated attacks in Benue State and southern Kaduna villages. Some were attacked inside churches. Then, on April 9th, Defense Headquarters confirmed that Brigadier General Oseni Omar, commanding officer of the 29th Task Force Brigade, had been killed. ISWAP fighters, the Islamic State West Africa Province faction that split from Boko Haram in 2016, overran his military base in Bama, Borno State, around 12:30 a.m. Other soldiers died alongside him. 11 days, one presidential promise, and a death toll that keeps climbing. But to understand why this moment feels different, why many Nigerians are now openly questioning whether the state can still protect them, we have to go back to the beginning. On the 29th of May 2023, Bola Ahmed Tinubu stood at Eagle Square in Abuja and was sworn in as Nigeria's 16th president. In his inaugural address, he made security his most explicit promise. Security, he said, will be the top priority of this administration because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail amidst insecurity and violence. He vowed to reform the country's security doctrine and architecture, better training, better equipment, better pay, and more firepower. He inherited a nation already bleeding. Boko Haram's insurgency had raged in the northeast for nearly 14 years. Armed bandit groups were sacking villages across the northwest. In the Middle Belt Plateau, Benue and southern Kaduna herder-farmer clashes had claimed hundreds of lives every year. Fixing this was the promise that defined day one. 2 years later, on the 29th of May 2025, Amnesty International released its audit. According to their investigation, at least 10,217 people had been killed in gunmen attacks across just 7 states since Tinubu took office. Benue alone accounted for 6,896 deaths. Plateau, where the recent Jos attack occurred, accounted for 2,630. Amnesty's Nigeria director, Issa Sanusi, was blunt. Things had not improved, they had gotten worse. 2 new armed groups, Lakurawa in Sokoto and Kebbi, and Mamuda in Zamfara, had emerged as major threats on Tinubu's watch. The Nigerian military disputes Amnesty's exact numbers for Benue, putting the toll at roughly 1/10. But Nigeria's own National Human Rights Commission has reported a significant rise in violations over the same period. Even if the precise figures are contested, the direction is not. Then 2026 arrived. On the night of February 3rd, hundreds of armed jihadis surrounded 2 neighboring villages, Waro and No, in Kebbi State, near Nigeria's border with Benin Republic. They blocked the exits and went door to door. The killing lasted for hours. Amnesty International reported at least 170 people killed and 38 abducted. The Critical Threats Project, a US security research group, called it the deadliest jihadist attack in Nigeria in the entire decade. Just 18 days later, Amnesty posted a statement that should have stopped the country cold. In the first 20 days of February alone, at least 323 people had been killed in attacks on rural communities across just 6 states: Benue, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, Niger, and Zamfara. That's roughly 16 deaths every single day. There's also the pattern with senior military commanders. In November 2025, ISWAP fighters ambushed a patrol near Wajiro in Damboa, Borno State. Brigadier General Musa Uba, commander of the 25th Task Force Brigade, was captured alive and later executed. 5 months later, on April 9, 2026, another Brigadier General, Oseni Omar, was killed inside his own area of operation. 2 brigade commanders lost in 5 months. According to AFP, this is the highest-ranking Nigerian officer killed by insurgents since Brigadier General Zakaria Ochepa was killed by ISWAP in November 2021. So, how does the country interpret all of this? The Tinubu administration says progress is being made. On April 5th, Information Minister Mohammed Idris told reporters the president is intensifying regional and international cooperation, citing talks with Chad's President Mahamat Deby and consultations with the United States, EU, and UK. Terrorism has no borders, he said. That cooperation is real. On Christmas Day, 2025, US Africa Command, working with the Nigerian government, launched what were reported as the first US Africa Command military strikes ever conducted on Nigerian soil, Tomahawk missiles and Reaper drone strikes on Islamic State camps in the Sambisa forest. President Tinubu personally approved the operation. By February 2026, US troops had begun deploying to Nigeria as advisors. The defense headquarters points to ongoing offensives under Operation Hardin Kai in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa. After the Kebbi massacre, Tinubu launched Operation Savannah Shield. After the Jos attack, he directed the installation of 5,000 AI-enabled security cameras across Plateau State, starting in Jos. The administration's message is clear. The work is being done. The international community is now actively involved. The military is striking back. Critics are not disputing that these things are happening. They are disputing whether any of it is working. They point to the same data we just reviewed. Amnesty International says the rising death toll shows the government has no effective plan. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar publicly reminded Tinubu of his own promise after the Easter attacks, calling the words hollow. On April 7th, a coalition of 52 civil society organizations, including Action Aid, the Center for Democracy and Development, Yaga Africa, SERAP, and Amnesty International Nigeria issued a joint statement declaring Nigeria on the brink of collapse. The information minister rejected the warning outright, calling it an attempt to undermine the government. Both descriptions can be true at the same time. There is more international cooperation than at any point in this presidency. There are operations underway. And yet, according to the figures Amnesty is reporting and the deaths the defense headquarters itself has confirmed, the toll, the displacement, and the loss of senior commanders are all moving in the wrong direction. The presidency points to what it is doing. Critics point to what is still happening. For the families of Angwan Rukuba, including the woman in the viral video, whom the president addressed directly at the airport after she had just buried her son, there is still no closure. Plateau police arrested 7 suspects, including one in military camouflage, with a forged ID. But the military's separate detention of 3 local youths triggered protests in the community. Angry women blocked roads, demanding their release. The investigation continues. The community remains divided over who its enemies actually are. For the displaced farmers of northern Nigeria, more than 500,000 internally displaced in Benue State alone, according to Amnesty, plus another 65,000 across Plateau, it means living in IDP camps that have themselves been attacked. Some communities have been displaced multiple times. For school children, it means living under the shadow of the kidnapping industry. In November 2025 alone, 25 schoolgirls were taken in Kebbi State, and 303 students plus 12 teachers were abducted from St. Mary's Catholic School in Niger State. For ordinary Nigerians, far from the front lines, abandoned farmlands and rural banditry are deepening food insecurity. Even as official inflation has eased, the cost of living has not. This is the country that will walk into a presidential election cycle in just over 9 months. The 2027 vote is scheduled for January 16th. What Nigeria looks like when voters reach the polls, whether the killing stops, whether anyone is held accountable, whether the promise made in May 2023 is ever measured against the reality, depends almost entirely on what the government does in the months ahead. 2 quotes, same president, separated by just under 3 years. In between them, thousands of dead Nigerians, 2 slain brigade commanders, hundreds of sacked villages, the first reported US, military strikes on Nigerian soil, and a coalition of 52 civil society organizations now openly using the phrase brink of collapse. The question we asked at the start remains the one Nigerians will answer at the ballot box in 2027. It is the same question President Tinubu took office to answer in 2023.